it's crazy how we've normalized unhealthy eating and laziness, right, as the norm in America, and eating healthy and exercise is looked at as extreme.
For sure.
So let's find out the truth based on the data. Welcome. This is Miss Natural Olympia Hillary.
And this is Doug the Formulator. Thanks for joining us today.
Absolutely. And remember, please click the bell underneath to get reminders of the latest podcast. We love when people follow us and we're able to get comments from you on things you want to see, hear, guests you want to have on. This year is going to be filled with a lot of guests and a lot of action items.
For
So
sure.
let's jump into it.
Okay.
We were talking about this. It's absolutely nuts how many people that we run into, and we're hearing it from our clients now too, and that they run into people that are like, wow, well, you're just, crazy because you're, you know, focusing on your diet and eating healthy and you're exercising all the time. And, that's just not my lifestyle. You guys are just this extreme group, and I don't want to be extreme.
Right, which is very interesting, especially if you look back, 50 years ago and how much more active we were as a nation. And yeah, I think it's interesting how movement and healthy eating, just a basic healthy diet, I'm not talking about extremes, I'm talking about a basic, holistic, healthy diet, is the extreme, how McDonald's is the norm,
That's crazy.
you
And,
know?
and let's look at what we're wanting to accomplish. So, if we're not talking about being Miss Olympia, we're not talking about an athlete, or we always talk about you really should be athletic, right? It should be
Right.
your goal. But let's say that you're not even there, that it's like, look, I want just optimal health, some good energy, live a long, great life without major diseases. Like man, you want to make it through and feel good and just have a good life.
Yeah.
No extremes, no body shaping exactly where you want it or anything like that. Just to be able to get through without having major pain, expenses, shortened lifespan.
Yeah, which those should not be a part of our everyday life. That shouldn't be what we're looking forward to in our lives, right? Oh no, I'm at that age. I should be feeling terrible. I should be on high blood pressure medication. I should be stiff and not being able to move as well, or sleep well. This whole sleep apnea thing, and what are those things that they have to
Yeah.
wear? So it's not something that we should look forward to. We should look forward to feeling good as we age. And the only way that we do that is by following fitness.
Following fitness. So today what we're going to do is to go through, not based on any opinions or on special athlete type numbers. We're going to look at the basic data that we have now for a long period of time, and there is some new data because of the foods and how bad they've gotten,
Right.
on what we need to do to have normal, good, optimal health. So what are the basics that everyone should do? And the things that you shouldn't look at as extreme. You should look at as is you're actually doing the bad extreme. Like why are you just absolutely beating your body to death as far as, health wise? That's how we should look at those things versus looking at the things to reach optimal health as an extreme. So maybe use the acronym fitness to go with it.
Yeah, so why don't we go through it? Let's go through fitness. So focused intense thought is our very first part of fitness, because it's the most important. We have to change the mind before we can ever change the body, right?
Absolutely. I think it's interesting too that now there's more people seeing therapists now than any time in history, right? Not just based on there's more people in the world, but based on the percentage. And yet people are still having troubles with their thoughts and that when one of the greatest organizational psychologists, our friend Dr. Ben Hardy, he puts it really well that most people are just not looking at themselves as their future self. They're not looking at themselves as what they're wanting to be, and that allows all this, talk going on in their head to create stories and going crazy with different things when most of it's eliminated when you're busy
When
working
you're
after.
when you have a focused laser, like a laser beam focused, when
Yeah.
you're focused on what you want. So I think it would be one thing if the amount of people seeing therapists or psychiatrists or that was accelerating really high right now, but then like our use of antidepressants and that kind of thing was lowered. I think that would be a different conversation, right? Because I love the concept of people being able to address their fears and speak to somebody, right? How many of us have life coaches, health coaches, therapists, counselors, and that's important because we need to get the mindset correct. But the thing is that we have people going to see therapists and trying to improve their mind, and yet still our numbers are climbing with antidepressants.
That's the key. That's the key. I mean, you hit it really on nail on the head is that the increase in the amount of antidepressants and drugs that are prescribed is increasing dramatically. So the therapy that's happening isn't working,
Right.
right? And we'll
Right.
talk about that with the other areas too, like nutrition and exercise. But with this one, what is the simple answer that should be the norm? The norm should be that you're constantly speaking to yourself about who you are, about your future self. So having the post-its up in your car and on your refrigerator in your office and that where people are like, man, they're crazy, or they hear them saying that I'm healthy, I'm strong, I'm worthwhile, that people will look at that and say, they're being weird when really everyone should be speaking to themselves. That should be the norm.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, but I do want to look at fitness as a whole and kind of condense it into one right now before we really get going,
Okay.
because there's been so many times in my life when nutrition and maybe exercise, mostly nutrition, exercise is pretty good, but when nutrition falls off a little bit and then the mindset suffers, right? And so it's this balancing act where we'll have conversations and I'll be like, no, you don't understand, I'm trying to do that, I'm trying to say the right things, I'm just not feeling it. And it's because we are such synergistic beings, everything should be in a line, and when we're feeling that way we need to address which part of fitness, which part are we slacking in to
Mhm.
be able to feel better. For example, I think sometimes when processed food or sugar content goes up, well, then it affects our gut health, right? And then it affects our hormones. And all of a sudden, no, I am talking to
Mhm.
myself. I'm doing it. I'm doing that. It's just not working. Well, there's a reason it's not working, right? It's because we have to look at fitness as a whole.
Absolutely. And I wasn't necessarily going to go down deep into this today because we want to have a special session on it, podcast. But here's something interesting about the focus intense thought that I think hopefully will be a light bulb for some people is when you're speaking to yourself, like, I am strong, I am healthy, I'm a loving husband, wife, whatever it is that you're speaking your future. The speaking isn't what's causing the vibration to attract that in your life. It's not. What's crazy about it is it's the actual you believing it. Until you
Mm.
believe, then you are not putting out the frequency to attract what you want. And so the speaking is only something to get you there. And so as Hillary's mentioning, if you don't have the nutrition under control so that the chemicals are present for you to actually, be hormonally balanced to be able to truly believe what you're saying, you'll never attract. That's why a lot of people, I do all that. I always do affirmations and I always speak this, but nothing but bad comes to my life, right? Things like that.
And then, but all of a sudden, the
The
words, right? But then
words.
this bad is always happening. Well, then you're vibrationally believing that,
That's the
right?
point.
Because you do believe that. So I agree with that. So I do feel like it is vitally important to fill our minds with good and to have gratitude in everything that we experience, and to know that we are moving towards our ultimate good and God is there for us to do that. So, but I would say that sometimes when we don't feel like it, it's still just as important to be speaking it, correct? And
100%.
even that much more important to what we're listening to.
Absolutely. And as much as you can believe, that's really the key is when it's toughest, that's when if you dig down deep and like I do believe that it's really tough right now. My hormones are off or I'm angry or I'm hangry, whatever it might be, truly working to believe. And I think we've gotten away from that a lot as a country and it's part of the problem. So the basics, based on the research showing, like you said, the prescriptions are going up in that world. It needs to be how we're going about therapy. And many times we need to accept that it's up to us to speak to ourselves, to believe what's possible, believe that we're worthy. And
Right.
that's really good.
Right. We used to have this conversation between Doug and I used to always say that, no, I'm a realist, right? I'm a realist. Well, we all believe what we tell ourselves. We all are creating our own reality. And so believing the best and having gratitude is the best way to get there. So
Absolutely.
the more gratitude that we feel and express for our life, the better we'll be able to change our mindset. But along with that focused, intense thought, we jump right into nutrition.
Into nutrition. And I like how you said that's a critical part of helping you with your focus intense thought. But let's take a look at the basic research. the basic research shows us that the high majority of Americans consume more calories than they should, and it's causing disease just by the excess calories, and it's causing people to actually have too much pressure so the mind can't think clear, can't get the focused, intense thought. You couple that with the research showing that 70 to 80% of the foods we're consuming now in America is processed foods. And, we have just an abundance. Go back to our old podcasts of research and proof now that the chemicals, the dyes, the processing of the food is causing damage on top of eating too many calories.
And we're eating it younger and younger. We're eating worse younger and younger. I mean, how many times have we witnessed, a baby bottle full of soda?
Crazy.
So it's happening younger and younger. We're being introduced to processed foods at a faster rate. And you and I were having this conversation the other day. You're a bit older than me, so when you were in your adolescence, for the most part, a lot of these chemicals hadn't been shoved into our foods and the plastics. It wasn't a big deal, right? When you were young. If you are, what is it, Generation X? Is that what generation am I?
Yeah, you're the end.
You're the
beginning of it.
beginning. I'm the end, I think. So if right at the 1980s point, right, if you were born 1980s and on, you've pretty much grown up on processed food. I mean, it's been in our environment. It's been there.
The same foods were a lot worse than they were before that.
Correct.
Right. And so even if you're eating the same amount, it's worse because of the chemicals in it. So that's a really good point.
So that's one thing to note. So I like the concept of, first of all, let's talk about the amount of food that we're eating. Really, in general, unless you are trying to put on a vast amount of muscle, right? Really, 2,000 calories is a decent amount of calories. Now, there are exceptions, and there are exceptions to that rule when we have a metabolism that has been accelerated. So there are some of us that can consume more.
Right. Usually based on lifestyle.
Speaking.
Generally speaking, 2,000, if you want to get a little bit better with that, like times your weight by 13, that should be the maximum amount that you take in. That's why you have trainers and coaches, right? There are things that would vary that a little bit when you're dialing. But for this conversation, if you stay under 2,000, or if you do the math times 13, number one, that should be the norm. That's what we should all do. That shouldn't be something that's an extreme. And, for a while, track your food. That's not an extreme. It's something you do every single day of your life is eat. Why not know how much is coming in, the calories, the protein, the carbs, and fats, so you don't have to? We've said it a million times. I haven't tracked in decades, but the caloric intake remains about the same.
The thing to remember, too, the cleaner your diet, the more natural the foods that you're consuming, the more calories you can be consuming. If you and I were eating a diet that was mostly raw, we could be pushing 3,000 to 4,000 calories and be doing just fine. Yeah, but the fact of the matter is, most of us are not doing that and not willing to do that. But we don't have to be if we're being more cognizant about the things that we're consuming. So
the simple takeaway action items is consume less than 2,000 calories a day, and that should be your norm. And work to get off as many processed foods as you can. Have your snacks be fruits, berries, raw nuts. If you do buy things in boxes, have the smallest amount of ingredients possible.
And ingredients that you understand. Mostly the ingredients that you can pronounce, you'll know are decent ingredients. And keep that ingredient list as short as possible.
That's it. We saw some crackers the other day, or show me, had, the organic wheat, salt, like, was it 4 or 5 ingredients, and then there's another that had like 40 ingredients in it. You don't have to know all those names, right? It's pretty simple to look to get the lowest amount of ingredients as possible, and we're working on ways to help you with that even more. But that's a great one. Nutrition is that we talk so much about nutrition and like your sport and the manipulation of the food and how hardcore the eating plan is and all of that. But today, what do you need just for optimal health that shouldn't be looked at as an extreme? It should be looked at as you're just doing what you should be doing. And the people that aren't doing that are like, man, why are you punishing your body like that? Like, why are you doing that? Should be the extreme. So what about exercise?
Or do
you want to stay on nutrition?
Exercise, I'm going to stay on nutrition for just a second, because I do want to explain some parts that we talk about nutrition. Okay. Some don'ts. Let's not consume carbonation. Let's kick carbonation out of the diet for the most part. I get it. Every once in a while, we're gonna consume some carbonation. Let's kick daily consumption of carbonation, daily consumption of alcohol. Those should not be present in our everyday lives. They just shouldn't, no matter what.
No matter what.
So daily consumption of alcohol, daily consumption of carbonation,
50 grams of sugar.
less than 50 grams of sugar per day. And we're not even talking about sugar that is present in natural fruit. We're talking about added sugar. So making sure your added sugar consumption is less than 50 grams a day. Let's start with that.
Use a healthy habits tracker.
That. Use the healthy habits tracker. Daily, we should not be consuming fried foods. So get rid of the fried foods. And
one thing about that, can I mention, is there's this big hoopla right now about switching from, fried chips that's in these vegetable oils to fried chips with tallow and all that.
Or avocado oil.
Or avocado. Look, it is better to have things that are fried in healthier oils. But we're talking about fried, period, because when you fry foods in any type of oil, right, even though some are healthier than others, you create something called acrylamides. And acrylamides are this carcinogenic, right, cancer-causing chemical caused from frying fats.
Yes.
And so fried foods should not be in your diet daily. But right now, what's being normalized is, just get the fried seed oil fats out and you're good. You can have all of the other fried foods you want. Not true. Not true at all. You still are creating acrylamides. It's just compounded when we're doing it with these seed oils and those types of things. So no fried food means no fried food. Yeah, right? At least on the daily. Like it should be far and few between.
I think also there's a misconception that if I'm only putting this much oil in my frying pan and cooking something, then I'm not frying it. No, that's frying it. So we really have to be cognizant of something like that. Of course, the amount of oil you use does affect the nutrient density of it. But anytime we're submerging food in oil and that's how we're cooking it, it's a fried food. So we need to stay away from that. If we're going to consume red meats, let's keep them organic, grass-fed. Game is great. So keep that in mind as we're consuming those. But if we lived by just those, parameters, we'd all be so much healthier. Also, I think something to start looking at is how not just raw fruits and vegetables. Okay, let's give us some grace, but how many fruits and vegetables generally am I consuming? So let's even give us a little bit of grace and say that we can steam some of these vegetables. I think looking on a daily basis, track it yourself for a week and look at your daily consumption of food. How many raw fruits and vegetables, or how many vegetables in general, are you consuming on a daily basis? And I think we need to up that for sure.
Well, the research shows you need a minimum of 10, no matter how you break them up, right? A lot of people, and I like that, there should be a higher amount of vegetables than that. But let's just say 10 servings, 10 fist-sized servings a day combined of fruits and vegetables. 9 out of 10 Americans don't get that.
I would say 9 out of 10 Americans don't get half that amount.
Yeah, well, right? it's the average is 1.2 servings.
Right.
So it's pretty crazy.
Yeah. So something that I think has been really beneficial for us is a lot of the time when we're about to consume a meal, we're like, what fruit or vegetable did I add to this meal? Mm-hmm. And kind of looking at it that way. Even if you're adding just a little bit, listen, we're all about those small changes. So looking at that can be really powerful. And then increasing our water consumption. If you're watching that sugar intake, then the drinks that you're drinking aren't going to be full of sugar because it'll be knocked out.
It'll usually increase on its own. So that's a good one.
Right. So I think I went through my nutrition spiel. Except I do want to say one thing about sugar. It is the devil. Man, sugar, processed sugar will do more harm to your brain and how you feel and how you think than just about anything else. And I am convinced of that, considering my hiatus that I went on just this last little while.
Well, the research backs it up. I mean, the bottom line is if you raise blood sugar levels with a processed sugar, then the damage that happens to the body, because the body goes in fight or flight mode, it does everything it can to get rid of that sugar. Because if you don't get rid of the sugar, you die. Your eyes will pop out of your head, look like Arnold Schwarzenegger in the movie, right? Mars, remember that? Anyways, it's going to go bad. Confused. And it doesn't go bad because our body goes to every effort to get that blood sugar normalized. And that's what's causing everything that we're feeling, because hormones, you don't need to have your hormones balanced to live, right? As long as you're getting just enough nutrients to the brain to live, it can reduce a lot for thinking and basic cognitive function. Your muscles don't have to have as much strength. It starts pulling from every area in the body to do that. And that's why it's the devil, is it makes it so that you don't metabolize food as easy. Everything goes away so that your body can stay alive. And many times that's about all it's doing. So sugar, 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 absolutely
And
main focus.
it just affects the brain and how we think far more than we ever think it does. So keep that in mind, and keep it in mind when we're talking about our children too, and how they're acting and, performing
Absolutely.
in life. So okay, now let's talk about exercise. I don't know that a lot of people are going to like hearing this.
That's right. American College of Sports Medicine. They did, that's their jobs to do studies on exercise. And they've done major meta-analysis studies, different countries all over the nation, going back over 50 years. And they said, here is what you need for just basic normal life, not sports, athleticism, just to be able to keep your risk of disease lower, have a long, healthy life. You need at least
An hour of physical activity a day.
hour a day of physical activity. And what's funny is when you really look at the research, it talks a lot about doing something against resistance for a good chunk of that. But because America didn't want to hear that, the American College of Sports Medicine, and I understand it, have come out and said, you just need an hour of exercise a day. And they still get pushback, like, who has the time to do that? Like, that's crazy. That's something that Americans did even in the 60s, 70s, beginning in the 80s as the norm. Like, you
Well,
would
yeah,
do what things as a family or go places to exercise for an hour a day. Brisk walking, not just a walk,
and
strength training.
years and years ago, our lives were harder. Our lives were harder. We had to walk further. I mean, it just wasn't, things weren't as readily available as they are now. So one thing that we have talked to some clients of ours, a married couple, which I love this, that they've decided, okay, we're just going to create new habits together instead of, and they work, they're busy professionals. Instead of on their downtime, laying down and watching, 30 to 40 minutes of television, they get up and they go for a walk together.
Mhm.
And that's where they've started with their exercise. And I think it's just such a phenomenal way to start, is like, listen, let's go walk and let's talk while we walk. And if that's where we start, that's phenomenal, because we really need to start movement.
Absolutely. And one of the things they've done that we've seen a lot with people is that they've also said, look, we took a look at why we go out to eat at these, major steak, fancy restaurants all the time. And we thought it was a rite of passage because they started making, some income to be able to afford to go to those places. And it's like buying that Gucci purse. They're like, oh, that's just what you do, like we can have that. So why not? And the problem is you're going out, and the reason the steaks taste so good in those places, that they're usually cooked in deep in butter, and they're so much so rich, and that's the problem with those foods. And it was cool to hear him say, "Wait a second, we can plan better things to do during our time instead of planning when the next big restaurant is, and going out and then actually making our health worse." And so it does come down, I think, to exercise being looking at your schedule and time and say, this is a time we're normally sitting around doing nothing. This is a time that we're eating some things that we really shouldn't eat. What could we replace with that to still spend quality time, but get the movement in? And for us, we love looking at gold places. We look for a different gym. We look for different things to be active, and it makes all the difference in the world. Plus, you get out and you're able to see things more in those areas.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think sometimes one of the problems is that where those rich and indulgent meals are like once a month, then they become once a week, and then they become a couple times a week, right? And then alcohol consumption, instead of, a special occasion once or twice a month, becomes a nightly thing, and
And
we
we've
start
seen that
relying on it,
over
and
and
we've
over
seen
again.
it over and over and over again. And so, yeah, I think replacing some, and that's probably what it's going to take for a lot of us, is replacing some of those habits that we've created with just some better ones,
With movement.
with movement. And what they've found is that they like it so much better.
Absolutely.
They are feeling better. They're enjoying their time together as a couple, and it's, it's creating a whole new life for them.
Yeah. And, going back to, when we first got married, one of the big things that we wanted to share with people, all over the world was that it doesn't take a lot of money to be able to set up a little exercise room in your house, because you still have that rule, the 20-second rule. If anything, you can make 20 seconds faster to get started on, the better chance you're going to do it. So if you can do some type of workout in your home, somewhere around there, not all the time. It's great to have a gym membership and go, but on those times, like we still have time to go, we can go in this room. We always had a room in the house, even a 3-bedroom room, whatever it might have been, that
A little
room is
corner of a
corner
room.
of a room. Yeah, dedicated. It's true, dedicated to exercise. And you go on Facebook Marketplace, you go on these places and get some basic machines. All you need is a pulley for pull downs and one that you can lift up and a few dumbbells. You don't need much, right? That we've always done that. You won, your first Olympia title from just us working out in a bedroom, and we've had great times with the
No,
family there.
I became pro that way, but not my
Pro,
Olympia time.
pro became pro that way. Sorry. And I think some of our greatest times of just enjoyment, laughing, even conversations that need to be had, been done while we're working out.
Heck yeah, man. I have said this for years, that some of the best conversations that I've ever had with my with you, but also especially with our children, have been in the gym. And that's been because endorphins are released in the gym, and all of a sudden you feel better and freer to kind of just speak and have conversations. And yeah, I will treasure times in the gym with our kids forever and
Yeah.
ever. And then of course, I love every moment I have with you. So okay, so there's
I'm not
exercise.
training you well enough if you love every moment in the gym. You gotta train harder.
That's true. I actually don't. I don't love every moment in the gym with you. That's a lie.
So
I don't.
exercise, the extreme that's looked at is, oh, you're in the gym all the time, an hour a day. Who has that when that should be the norm? And it's about finding the time, because you have chosen who you are. And when you've chosen to be someone healthy and know that, look, this is the baseline to be healthy, then you're going to find a way to get it done.
Yeah, and unfortunately, if we do not find time to make health a priority, then disease will set in, and it will make time for us.
Absolutely.
It will be forced upon us. So let's talk about that last part of fitness, which is specific supplementation.
Well, that's one that, it used to take a lot of conversations to have people understand the importance of that. I remember even when I first started in the NBA, I would say probably a fourth of the players, weren't even taking vitamins, because it's like, oh no, I just eat food. And then the research really started coming out in the late 80s, early 90s, as to, wait a second, no matter what, even if you try to eat very healthy, you're not going to get all the nutrients. And one deficiency in vitamin D, vitamin C, magnesium, your muscle strength goes down dramatically. We can go through all the vitamins. It's a big deal. And then that's when, basically, not basically, every athlete, we started doing that. But for non-athletes, the research is still very, very clear, right? And so the number of calories you'd have to eat a day is over 27,000 to get all the nutrients.
Yeah, that's wild.
That
That's a
is.
wild number.
So
Yeah, so what we're saying basically is that whole food supplementation, supplements, your vitamins, your minerals, are vital
are
to
vital.
health.
And so what is the amount needed for normal, optimal health at the cell level in the body? And the answer to that is that you need vitamins, minerals, probiotic enzymes, and essential fatty acids. Those are the groups that you need a little bit of, and everyone's made a little bit different each day. And the best and easiest way to do it is, one, make it super simple to take and make sure you're getting all of those. And so that's why we created, actually just recently, you can go on the Optimal Health Systems website, or you can put a message here and we'll send you a direct link. Message us and we'll get that to you, that you can take a little quiz and you answer the questions, and it'll create a custom pack for you with all the vitamins, all the minerals, all the probiotics, all the enzymes, all the fatty acids, and the certain herbs based male, female that you need. And you can just do that.
Yeah, and
Right?
it's based off your questionnaire, so it's based off of the information that you get. So nobody's is exactly the same unless their lifestyle's similar. So
Absolutely.
yeah, so we always recommend that people get their blood work done at least twice a year. But if that's something that you're not investing in quite yet, then this questionnaire makes it a little bit quicker and easier to get going.
Absolutely. And I think for saying what is the baseline, that's really the baseline out there. And as you'd mentioned, I think it's crazy for people to not get blood work done twice a year because so many,
Especially after what age?
oh gosh, after the age of 30, because we've seen so many lives saved. We've seen so many people not go into hormonal transition, decades ahead of time. In other words, they've been able to save from going into that for decades longer than they normally would. We've seen so many. I mean, I want to say thousands of people over the decades, but between just me and you, hundreds in the last,
Hmm.
even few years that we've
Yeah.
seen. And so there is that baseline of just look, take a pack morning, take a pack night instead of 7 bottles. Simple. Do the quiz. Take a good hard look at blood work. And I don't think you have to think you're being athletic for the blood work. It's really just something you're doing to see, how are my organs? How's my risk factors? What are the deficiencies? That type of thing. But again, comment back to this and we'll make sure that you get hooked up with a holistic health professional or we'll help take care of you in that place. So 27,575 calories you have to eat. No one's going to eat that much. You'd gain 6 pounds of fat a day. So you need to take basic
I'd be willing
nutrients.
to try.
No, it's crazy.
Yeah, so I think this is really great information, especially at the start of the year.
Mhm.
Really looking at, okay, what are some things that I can give up? What are some things that I'm willing to sacrifice to actually feel better and to have a better life, by the time 2025 ends. So
Absolutely. So let's quit normalizing unhealthy eating. Let's quit normalizing laziness and look at truly what we need to live a good, healthy, strong, optimal life and make that the norm. And as you go into 2025 with that mindset, then you're going to be able to reach optimal health. And we're going to do some great work this year.
I love that.
As always, this is Miss Natural Olympia Hillary.
And this is Doug the Formulator.
See ya.